The most difficult parts to be done in Smalltalk are those created by other technologies, like cameras. So that what makes us pain. Okay, so now one of my favorite talks will start because it is key to our Smalltalk doings that we have strong vendors that support us and provide us with the right tools and the right technology to work with. And so I welcome Arden Thomas from Cincom Systems. He is Cincom Smalltalk Product Manager, and will explain to us what's new and exciting. So, excite us.
Right. I think since we have the camera set up now, I have time for the first slide and the last slide, so bear with me. The name of this is, so what is Cincom Smalltalk Roadmap? So I'll talk about a few things and what is new and exciting in Cincom Smalltalk. As Georg mentioned, I'm the Cincom Smalltalk Product Manager. Probably most of you know it, but I became Product Manager back in the fall, and I had a few questions back then about what happened to James. A little startled. James just basically changed his title to do what he felt was a title more accurate to what he was doing in promoting Smalltalk, and suggested I take over as Product Manager and maybe try to bring a methodical approach to helping move the product forward. And the two of us are fairly like-minded on the majority of things anyway, so it wasn't too much of a shock. So the contents of this, where are we right now, will be part of it. Where are we headed will be the most of it. And then just a couple teasers on a couple more talks that we'll be doing. First on called Smalltalk Second Surge on Smalltalk advocacy. It's tomorrow, and also on web velocity, which James and I will be doing tomorrow also. So where are we right now? We've got new products just released 2 months ago, and we have the VisualWorks 7.6 product, which if we're kind of positioning them, where are they? VisualWorks is kind of the craftsman developer's choice. And Object Studio, how do we differentiate that? And that's kind of the business architect's thinking tool. You can build UML diagrams, generate frameworks, etc. with some of the tools in Object Studio. And Object Studio 8.1, many of you already know, runs basically on and with VisualWorks, VisualWorks 7.6. So people moving to Object Studio 8.1 get a lot of additional things together, basically all the things that are with VisualWorks. We still have an Object Studio Classic, which is just basically a maintenance release. We want to try to move people forward, and there's a lot of advantages to moving up to Object Studio 8.1. So what's in VisualWorks 7.6? And by the way, for a lot of the things here, we're lucky that we have a lot of engineering representation, that if somebody wants to know very detailed specifics on some of these things, we have people here who can answer these in excruciating detail, if so desired. So one thing we have is revamped refactoring browsers in VisualWorks 7.6. Another big change is our stance on Seaside, in that we're officially supporting it. So you can call the customer, you can call and get support for your Seaside applications. We moved it off Web Toolkit and provided something we feel is much better underneath of it, which is OpenTalk for the Seaside support. And also we're working with the Seaside community to continue to help move that forward and contribute where we can. Another open source piece that we are supporting now is an OR mapping framework called Glorp, and you're probably familiar with that. Another addition, I think Andres was giving a talk on it during the conference, on hashing. Those improvements are in VisualWorks 7.6. And there's other things like a MySQL EXDI for covering another database. Some other things. OS 10 VM is much better than it used to be. You hover help, flicker reduction, improvements to Web Toolkit. And actually, there's over 60 pages of all kinds of detail on enhancements to VisualWorks 7.6. So a lot of changes. We also put things out in preview, and one of the things in preview is the grid widget. Many of you remember the widgetry project, and we took some pieces from widgetry, and one of the pieces we brought over we thought would be very useful is the grid widget. And it's kind of a simpler, more robust table or data set that a lot of people found useful. So we brought that over pretty much directly with obvious changes to work with VisualWorks. There's a startup script for Unix, something called write barriers, which you make an object basically read-only, and you can catch exceptions when someone wants to change it. Scroll bars that only appear when they're supposed to. Things like multi-threaded COM support, so it's non-blocking. Command line and scripting support. With our other featured product, Object Studio, we're very happy that Object Studio is the first and only Vista certified Smalltalk. Now, VisualWorks will run on Vista, but the Object Studio product is actually certified for Vista. And that's important to some organizations. There's a new installer to support that, a number of fixes between 8.0 and 8.1, and also you can use Seaside with the Object Studio product as well. So now, where are we headed? We want to step back and take a bigger, longer-term view of some of our goals and what we want to do. We want to move the product forward while keeping our customers happy. And we realize if the product doesn't move forward, we'll lose customers. If we make changes and the changes are far too abrupt, we'll lose customers. So we have to find the right balance. So how do we advance it? Well, first we want to keep it compatible where it's reasonable to do so. And I say where it's reasonable because I know some people have concerns. Well, if you try to make everything compatible, you might come out with things that you're really selling yourself short, or you're truncating the abilities of that feature just to keep it compatible. So where reasonable, we keep it compatible. Okay. Also, sometimes if you want to move from point A to point B, and point B is very, very different than point A, I know a lot of people, myself included, say, okay, well, we want to start with B, so we'll start with a clean sheet of paper and kind of build something new, and it's radically different, and it's a large porting effort to move from A to B. But I've realized from working with engineering for a while, some people have a real knack, and I think it's a real talent and ability to be able to get you from point A to point B incrementally. And they have the facilities to really do a good job at planning that, so they can basically gradually move you, and at the end of that journey, you're over to point B, which is very different, but it wasn't a disruptive move for the customer. If we do change things, we should try to make it easy for the customer. A porting guide, a porting tool, perhaps. And here's one thing that we really should keep in mind. If you're making the customer change, you've got to make it worth it. Back when I was doing product development, one of the things I found was if I went to management and said, well, I need to kind of redo all this stuff because they've made it better in the infrastructure, and I would be asked the question, okay, what is the tangible result that I'm going to see in the application as a result of this? Nothing is the wrong answer. Nothing is the answer that says, well, then you can't do it. So if we can help our customers with this, so when they go, well, here we need to do this, and they say, well, what are the tangible results? Well, A, B, C, D, E. It makes it a whole lot easier for customers to justify moving things forward and moving to new technology. What else do we want to do? Well, we really want to help move Smalltalk forward and help grow the Smalltalk community. So some ways that we're trying to help grow the Smalltalk community, I guess the first is pretty obvious, continue to improve the product. We have some advocacy work on Smalltalk. And there's a talk on that tomorrow. It's called Smalltalk Second Surge. If you're a user of Smalltalk and your management ever asks you the question, why are you using this? I ask you, it's probably a good idea to attend the session because I help give some ideas of why you should be using Smalltalk and why it's becoming more relevant again. And in some presentations to customers, they've said this is helpful for talking to our management, so it's good feedback to get. Other things, embracing new technologies like Seaside, new products which you'll see this week, a new product we're coming out with called Web Velocity. And also we just want to try to get out. I know James goes out and talks to lots of user groups. I try to talk to some user groups. I know actually James targets a lot of Ruby user groups because a lot of those people can appreciate the technology, I think, easier because of the similarity between the languages. So we want to get the product in people's hands. The non-commercial. People, even if they're not using it commercially, the more people that know Smalltalk and are able to use it helps us all. So, where do we get product input? How do we figure out what we're going to do in moving the product forward? And basically, we get the input from our customers. We get it internally, primarily from our engineering staff, and also from the Smalltalk community. Some of you may be familiar with this basically last planning go-around that we had. I called it 9 for 09. And I sent out some questionnaires to customers in the community basically asking, give me 9 things. And they were in 3 different categories. They weren't limited to 9, but a good starting point. Give me 9 things, 3 in each category. What can we fix or replace in the product? Tell me 3 things. What bothers you? How can I make your life better or easier? What can I add? Tell me 3 things that we should be thinking about adding that can make the product better. And actually the original third one was, since there's such a history of innovation with Smalltalk, tell me 3 innovative things that we could do that would really help put Smalltalk back on the front burner. And then I had a kind of a bonus 3. What 3 things can we take out of the product? What 3 things do you think nobody's using, or that we can kind of, slim the product down by ejecting, perhaps? So what did the customers, engineers, what did they tell us? Kind of one of the general themes, this is summing it up a little bit, one of the themes was make it modern, make it look modern. Give me the ability to build really attractive, really cutting-edge, beautiful applications that I can really get people excited about. So we have a number of things that you'll see in our to-do list, our punch list, of what we plan to do, and a number of them have this modernization theme. And by the way, this is some common feedback and a common approach we're going to take with both our major Smalltalk products, VisualWorks and Object Studio, and of course Web Velocity. So what else did they tell us? It's kind of interesting. I first started using Store in the early 2000s, and I moved us from a kind of a homegrown system to Store, and it was a vast improvement from the cobbled together effort that we had there. And for a small shop, I thought Store worked fantastic. So I was a little perplexed at first to hear, oh, we're having problems with some Store. We'd like some other things out of it. And after talking to the customers and getting lots of feedback, it became more apparent what the issues were. So what we want to do with Store is, and this is especially for large shops that have very large, extensive applications, lots of things to load, lots of developers working together. We need to make it perform better, faster. So if we're loading up or doing large-scale changes. The second one I thought was surprising at first, and that is the merge tool. Because I know when I started using the merge tool, I was always very suspect of it until it always seemed to do the right thing. So then we just almost blindly, just used it because it just worked. But there's circumstances that were laid out for me with branching off and merging multiple times where it could have better heuristics, better capability. The third thing, and probably at least compared to things like Envy, where store would be weaker, is in configuration management. See, these are things we are planning to address with store going forward. What else? Fonts. Our font system is a bit dated. It was kind of state of the art perhaps when it first came out, and we've outlined a number of different things that we can do with improving fonts. Several projects. Internationalizations. We have many customers who want to deploy their applications globally and into Asian markets and other places, and they want that ability in the product. So that is one of the priority things that we have for moving forward. Things that we'd started are still important. And I'll get into these in more detail, but VM is being able to call the product as a DLL or shared object, improving the speed of the C interface, improving the tools for the C interface. Here's one I think is really interesting, and that is leveraging multi-core computers. And multi-cores are just becoming more and more prevalent. Who knows in a few years how many cores will become in computers, but they'll continue to grow. Customers can leverage multi-core now by using many images and having them communicate. We want to try to make that easier. I think when you can tell people or developers can see that they can easily leverage and harness a lot of the horsepower on the desktop in front of them, it's really, really attractive. And we want to try to leverage that. And there's probably some short-term things we can do and some longer-term things. So one of the things is we do things, frameworks like MapReduce, which Google uses. We want to start thinking about and researching what we can do in this. So, what things made the list? We broke some things down into high priority items and priority items, and some internal changes that we need to make. Well, with the internal changes, it's kind of like the story of some woodcutters going through, and they're clear cutting an entire forest. And they're using a big saw, and they make very fast progress in the beginning. And then as the saw gets duller and duller and duller, their progress starts getting slower and slower and slower. And somebody asked me, well, why don't you sharpen the saw? And they said, we can't sharpen the saw. We're behind schedule. We've got to keep going. So one of the things we're doing internally is stopping and tuning up our development process so we can start to make faster changes again in the future. This is the high priority list. I've got some things on each item. I mentioned one of the formats that I like to use in general to explain things is the what, how, and why. What is it? How is it different than something else or what I know? And why should I care? So one of the things, being product manager, if you have great ideas or you have feedback on what we should be doing with the product, please send those ideas to me. But then one of the things I might ask you is what, how, and why. Because sometimes I see these really detailed uses of technology, and it's almost for technology's sake. I like to back up and say, okay, that's interesting. You know, how is it different? What is it? How is it different? And why will people find that attractive? What's great about that? And if you can't explain those things, it really makes it. You should question whether it's important to do. It's an important thing, or you may need to articulate better why it should be done. So internationalization, I mentioned, customers want to deploy globally. And we're going to basically make it so they can do that through a variety of locales, largely based on the CLDR repository that describes the different locale information. 64-bit VM support. We have some 64-bit VM support currently. We found that not a lot of people are using it yet, but a lot of customers are gearing up to begin using it. So we plan to bring that forward. Another thing that's not on here is also our Gemstone partners. There's a lot of customers of ours that are also using Gemstone products. And we want to make sure that our 64-bit products work with the Gemstone 64-bit products. So, an important point. One of the big advantages of 64-bit is you can have a lot more objects loaded in memory. There's other things, larger small integers, small double, and probably a host of other differences, but like I said, people are gearing up to using 64-bit operating systems and products going forward. I mentioned there would be a number of things with the modernization theme. This is the first and one of the most important, and that is improving the graphics capability of the product. Because in modern interfaces like Vista and OS X have, there's alpha blending and gradients that we can't reproduce currently. But with this we can, and we get a whole. With the way that we're looking at doing it, some of you may have seen presentations in the past by Travis about his work with integrating with Cairo, which is a cross-platform library that has very extensive graphic support. I consider this change very, very significant. And then there's just a whole host of additional benefits, being able to output PDFs, being able to do scaled vector graphics. So we're looking for a lot of benefits from this change. Another modernization item is GUI infrastructure work. For quite a while, because of the widgetry effort, our current GUI infrastructure was somewhat neglected. And we've been attending to that pretty rigorously in the meantime. And I think we have a lot of ideas about how to correct it. When we looked into the matter and discussed it with engineering, I found basically that there's a core to the current architecture that is really, really well done. Really well architected, solid, really well thought out. Some things were added over the years that maybe should have been back and either redone or refactored or fixed. And those are really basically the areas that are, that are not as good as the core is, and that we can get a lot of benefit out of fixing and redoing. And we're basically doing exactly that. More modernization. We want to improve the attractiveness of our customers' ability to deliver really attractive applications, and also the attractiveness of the IDE itself. And we want to do it right. We want to try to make all the graphics and things well thought out. So we are working with some professional graphics designers to redo the product logo and icons in the product, actually 3 products. 3 products wide, to do a very modern, professional presentation of the IDE. And actually, for the group, this is a pretty significant step. It really kind of underscores the Cincom's management's backing of the product and its future. They're getting much more serious, and Suzanne has done a great job of basically selling the product internally. So we're getting a lot more attention, and the attention that Smalltalk deserves. More modernization. Object Studio 8 is going to kind of get a facelift as well. We want to be able to kind of bring in the latest version of the widgets. Object Studio 8 uses native widgets. Modeling tools. I mentioned some of the features that make Object Studio, that differentiate Object Studio, say, from VisualWorks, are the modeling and mapping tools. So we are bringing the modeling tools, refreshing them, bringing them up to date, up to current UML standards, and a lot of other enhancements over time for the product. So we think that's a very important feature. It's one of the defining features of the product. So it's important that we move that forward. On here for a number of reasons is shadow loading, parcel generation, and what it is, it lets us load packages. Some people describe it as atomically. Basically lets you load things. It all succeeds or it all fails, and it's basically all installed at once. And basically what this gives you is more tolerant and capable loading in the image. So it prevents errors when packages partially load. It makes it easier to load packages that modify the core system. We mentioned the improvements made to DLLCC. Some of our customers work extensively with external libraries, and in high-frequency calls, they want the overhead to be lower, so we want to make those calls faster. There's some situations in grid computing where, in the process under heavy load, there's some errors that we run into that you have to error handle. We want to make that more robust for heavy loads and grid computing. Better delays. Well, delays work, except as you start to push some edges, like make a long live delay, and then your computer changes because of daylight savings time. It won't handle that scenario, for example. So we're looking at POSIX standards for developing delays that will be much more robust and work under a much broader set of circumstances. Those are the higher priority items. I have some bullets for priority items. One is the modernization of fonts. And I mentioned before, there's many different projects that we can do to improve basically using fonts, the API for fonts, the capabilities, and the ability to build attractive applications with our system. Look policies, the look and feel. We want to keep up to date, bring out new ones, like for new operating systems, bring things up to date, and make the behavior more authentic. Store improvements, we mentioned. We plan to make improvements to speed, merge capabilities, and configuration management. And this, I think, is mostly directed, or especially directed, at large customers who really lean on this heavily. I think they'll get the most benefit. Everyone will benefit in general. VM as DLL this is so that Smalltalk can be called as a DLL or a shared object. But this is, I think this one is fairly significant. We get some calls from people who say, oh, you know, I just learned Smalltalk, I'm excited, I want to use your product, and I want to do this little compartmentalized area so I can prove the usefulness of this to management, and we can start expanding the use of it. And one of the things we've always kind of been is, if we're used in multiple technologies in projects, we tend to want to be the hub, kind of be the center of the universe and use those other technologies. But in reality, that probably keeps us from getting some new customers and for people to bring it into their organizations. So what this lets us do is make Smalltalk an easier choice for people to bring into organizations, do a small project that can be called from other technologies, and its worth and return on investment can be demonstrated, and then the use expanded. So we think this is significant in helping grow the Smalltalk community. DLLCC tools, we mentioned we want to improve the speed. We also want to improve the tools that let you connect to external libraries. There's lots of good solutions already out there, and we want to make it easier for people to use those. So this is part of that. We support a number of different protocols. We want to bring some of those up to current specs. Martin Kabetic, and he's got a punch list of things and improvements that he keeps very abreast of all the latest protocols. Native installers, we want to have product installers that install for a specific platform with a native installer that's familiar to everyone using that platform, to make it a better experience for the person, for the customer, and also make it easier for us to maintain those installers. We mentioned with Object Studio, we are moving forward the modeling and the mapping tools, which allow you, are tools that allow you to map to your databases. And one of the things we are looking at is moving those to a shared object relational mapping under the covers, which in this case would be Flora. As I mentioned, the mapping tools are kind of a defining feature for the Object Studio product. Mac OS 10, the last release saw a substantial improvement, and we've got a lot more in line to improve the speed, stability, wiring into native things for that platform. We are working with some people to make that happen quicker. Web Velocity, there's a presentation tomorrow to learn more about that. It's based on Seaside, it's based on LORP, and it's got some surprising features about it, which we'd love to tell you guys about tomorrow. One of the things we're looking at is a zero setup time that can be deployed in the cloud, EC2, and S3, and possibly SimpleDB to be a really simple, powerful, robust choice for people to use. I mentioned that leveraging multi-core computers is something that's really attractive, both to decision makers and people using Smalltalk and to developers. And we are looking into ways to make that happen and to make it easier for people to use. Web Velocity, the what, how, and why, and basically it's a teaser for come tomorrow morning, and James and I will tell you about it. It's a new product. We're really excited about the future and what it can do for Smalltalk as well. The other talk tomorrow is on Smalltalk advocacy, and like I said, if you've ever been asked the question, why are you using Smalltalk, I I'd suggest coming to this. It has a lot of ideas about why it's becoming relevant again and why we're seeing significant growth in Cincom for our Smalltalk customers. And that is basically it. Any questions? Documentation for Glor. Yes.
You won't comment whether it will focus or not. Well, that implies it both.
Yes, I actually, that's in process now.
In all seriousness, there is a document under production by our documentation team. What's out there right now is not really what it's.
There's a scattering of documentation, but we're trying to do a much better job with that.
What's up to date too? Some of those things are several years old, probably older, and it's hard to know what's actually happening.
Neil, can you please keep that up to date? Just kidding. Any other questions? Carl.
Does modernizing the UI include native pull-down menus for Mac?
Is that one feature specifically native pull-down features? That is something we have seen that we're not sure yet whether that's going to make the cut of the different features going in. Is that important to you?
I think it's probably important to users of Mac software.
It does look nice. Yes. If that is important, feedback is great.
We haven't been so deep.
Okay. More questions? Well, like I said, we have a lot of engineering resources here. If you have questions about specific areas you'd like to perhaps know some more details or what we're thinking about it, we've got some excellent people here who I can direct you to go into it in excruciating detail if desired.
Auxiliary.
Thanks.
You talked about some things that you're going to add, some things you're going to improve. You didn't mention anything that you're going to remove or throw away. Is there anything specific that?
We do have people simplifying and throwing some basic stuff out, but we really haven't identified any large scale things yet. Yeah. Okay, if that's it. Oh, Carl. Yeah.
Well, I didn't hear any mention at all of the never be labored packaging issue, making the package easier and so you can ship smaller.
Packaging
Either
for
changing the packaging so that you build up with a smaller core, or making the scripting tools better, or
that's on the list. It's not on our. It's still in the. We have a list, and we said, here's the really important things that people are depending on, and here's the next step down, and then that's kind of in the next one down. So it's not in the real high priority stuff, but that still is on the list. And again, if people, there's certain things that are really important to you, I'd love to get feedback in what you're thinking about why that's important. Alan.
Yeah, I'll just mention that the building up aspect you can do to a considerable extent at the moment anyway. There's an issue of having nicer tools around it. And there's just people trying to make crazy small executable sizes that have an issue with that.
crazy. How small is crazy small?
Well, they keep referring to this thing called a floppy, and we're not sure what that is. We've been through our archives to figure out what a floppy is. But
Yeah, it's small, it's by larger. Oh, thanks. Make sure that we're
Okay, thank you very much.